everybody to the first executive advisory meeting. Today is Wednesday, the 2nd of June. It's start of test match. So I know one or two of you will be wanting to nip off fairly promptly at the end of the meeting. This meeting is being held via Teams and will consider reports on the agenda and make recommendations to support the leader of council to take the final decision in line with the powers vested in him or in the leader under the Constitution. And before I hand over to Democratic Services, I'd just like to wish belated birthday wishes to the Deputy Leader, Jill Slocum, who hit a massive milestone yesterday, and let's hope she hits more. So thank you. Andrew, over to you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. So this meeting is being recorded. We will run it in a very similar format as if it was an executive meeting. So we will make a recording available, and that will obviously help support the leader in the decision-making process that he'll do towards the end or as we go through each item. And there will be a decision notice issued in the same way as a decision notice would be issued if we held the executive. So there will be the opportunity for other councillors to call in any decisions if they so wished at the end, as we would do normally. And obviously the recording will go up on our website. Hopefully the technology will be in order today, but if there are any problems, then we will adjourn the meeting shortly, just for a short period, so that we can resolve any technical problems. But hopefully there won't be any of those today. If I can ask all members to make sure they remain muted, and if you do need to attract the attention of the leader, if you could use the chat facility, so you don't always see the hands when they go up. The format of the meeting will be as per the agenda, and I'll hand over to the leader now to do the normal roll call. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. If I can just go around the executive members, and if you can confirm that you can see and hear, I would be very grateful. To kick off, I'll say, yes, I'm here, and I can see what's going on. Thank you. Councillor Slocum.
Thank you, Leader. Jill Slocum, Deputy Leader. I can see and hear everything that's going on. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Caswell.
Good morning, everybody. Councillor Mike Caswell. I can clearly hear and see everything.
Thank you. Councillor Doddridge.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Councillor Lance Doddridge, customer access and digital delivery, and I can see and hear everything. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Andrew Gilling.
Leader, thank you. Yes, I can clarify that I can hear and see everything. Councillor Andrew Gilling, that is Portfolio for Housing.
Thank you. Councillor Mark Healy.
Yeah.
You're on mute.
Sorry, forgive me. I thought I'd pressed it. Mark Healy, portfolio holder for commercial and asset management. I can clearly see and hear everything. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Keane, Janet Keane.
Good morning, everyone. Janet Keane. I confirm I can see and hear everything.
Thank you. And if I can just run round the SLT officers present today, starting with Claire Fawn.
Yes, Claire Fawn, Corporate Relations Manager. I can see and hear everything. Thank you.
Thank you. Doug.
Hello there. Good morning, Doug Bamsey, Deputy Chief Executive. I confirm I can hear and see.
Thank you. Alison.
Good morning, everyone. Alison Turner, Strategic Director and Section 151 Officer. I can confirm I can see and hear everything.
Thank you. Melanie Wellman.
Good morning, everyone. Assistant Director, Legal and Governance and Monitoring Officer, and I can confirm that I can see and hear everything. Thank you.
Thank you. And we're joined by other officers, Anna Mears, Christy Blackwell, and Simon Tandy. I'm assuming that they can see and hear, otherwise they would have made a noise. And we were joined by the Chief Executive of Homes in Sedgemoor, Peter Hatch, here today. So welcome all. We have a number of other councillors present, including the Leader of the Opposition, Councillor Brian Smedley. And the ex-chairman of council as well, as we can hear in the background. So without further ado, then I'll start the agenda proper. Apologies.
There are no apologies today, Leader.
Right, members, are there any declarations of interest?
Leader, if I could, on item 9, can I declare personal interest as a member of the Board of Homes in Sedgemoor, please?
Thank you. Councillor Keane?
Am I off mute? Yes, likewise, a member of the Board of Homes in Sedgemoor, but also at one part when discussing I've forgotten which item of the agenda, the various housing prospective homes. I am a trustee of one of the sites that is under discussion.
Thanks. Mrs. Wellman?
Thank you very much, Leader. In relation to the interest declared in relation to homes in Sedgemoor, they're personal interests only, so the members can remain in the room and take part in the debate. I will need to clarify with Councillor Keane which development she is talking about. So I will message Councillor Keane directly, and we can resolve that whilst we're debating, just so I can clarify whether that's a personal or personal and prejudicial interest.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Right, moving on then to urgent business. We have none. Public speaking, we have no members of the public present, but of course I'll allow any councillor or anyone who wishes to speak during the course of each agenda item. And at the end, of course, of each item of the executive advisory meeting, it will make a clear recommendation to the leader of council. So without further ado, could we now go to agenda item 5, if Mr. Melhuish is happy with that, and I'll hand over to Councillor Duddridge, who will introduce Simon Tandy, I'm sure.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Yeah, as I always say when we do these performance executives, I'm very pleased to bring forward another positive report on the performance of the council. As you can see from the report, performance remains excellent throughout, and in fact we had the best quarter's performance at 88% since quarter 1, I think, of 2018 to 19, which is again a great tribute to our staff and the work that they've all put in through the pandemic. We continue to perform strongly in areas such as benefits and Lifeline, which could have been affected by the pandemic. Mr. Tandy's got the detail, but before I hand over, I'd just like to thank him for all the work he's done throughout the year, especially for the last quarter, which was the end of year quarter. And I'd like to thank all the portfolio holders for the work they've done with their officers to make sure performance remains very strong. At the risk of upsetting everybody else, I'd like to thank Councillor Slocum for work on the last quarter, because I know he had a lot of actions outstanding that needed resolving before we compiled the performance reports. So thanks her and her officers for all the work they've done. I'll hand over to Mr. Tandy, but very happy to take any questions afterwards.
Thank you. Mr. Tandy.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, Councillor Duddridge, and good morning, everybody. Yeah, just to echo what Councillor Duddridge has said, we couldn't have had a more shining report, really, in respect of the actions. We have very few overdue. In fact, at the time of reporting, there were 0 high-level actions overdue, so nothing further to say on that. Operational actions wise, we set a whole host of operational actions last May, which was slightly later than we would have perhaps preferred originally, but with everything that happened with COVID, things were slightly delayed, and we were in a situation where we didn't really know what the future held at the time. So we did set a whole load of actions, knowing that there was a good chance that there would be some that wouldn't be deliverable during the course of the year, depending on what happened. And this was and is reflected in the situation that we are in at the moment, in that there are still a lot in progress. We've moved a number on into this new year, and at the moment we also are in the process of setting up exactly how we're going to monitor actions for the course of 2021-22. However, the fact that 75% of the actions we set were delivered in that time period is real testament to all of our staff, and obviously the work is ongoing. And the fact that there were only a relatively low percentage overdue by the end of the quarter is also very, very positive. Swap actions, so these are the ones that come out of our audits. Again, we have a relatively low percentage overdue, and these are the types of actions that can be set, you know, many years in advance. So we do actually monitor the previous 3 years worth of actions, or up to 3 years worth of actions. So the figures on page 1 of the corporate dashboard are those that relate back to April 2019, so just over 2 years ago. Moving on to the performance indicators, which is really the highlight, I think, in the fact that throughout the course of the year, we didn't really know that we'd be able to deliver such a high percentage on target. Each quarter, we sort of waited with bated breath to see, you know, how many we weren't able to deliver on target. And throughout the whole year, we've managed to have over 82.5% on target, which is our target for the number of for the percentage required. And to get to the end of Q4 and find that we had 88% on target, which is higher than any of the results we've had, as Councillor Dudridge said, since the beginning of 2018-19, is real testament to our staff, all of our staff, and the authority as a whole. A couple of highlights on those benefits during Q4. As you can imagine, with the government roadmap, there were a number of changes of circumstances, a very high number. There were nearly 13,000 changes of circumstances to people's benefit claims. So that indicator for the speed of processing benefit claims being at 2.84 days with a target of 10 days, when they had nearly 13,000 to deal with, is really, really quite something. So a real big thank you to the benefit service for that. And another highlight is planning, because despite the real rise, a significant rise in the number of planning applications during this period of the pandemic, they continue to deliver majors, minors, and other applications well on target, and major applications continue now for about 5 or 6 years, where they've had 100% of major applications decided on time. So again, a big thank you to them. Happy to take any questions on the corporate dashboard as a whole. No questions?
Leader, if I might just drop in with one question, particularly to Simon and indeed the Deputy Leader, regarding the planning situation. Are we any further forward with appointment of an enforcement officer to supplement the team that we've got at the moment?
I think Councillor Slocum may be able to answer that, or Stuart Howlett.
Could I just come in and thank my little friend there for mentioning planning, and where we are very well aware that we have had areas of registration and enforcement, and I think through COVID this has proved very, very difficult in this area, and I think there's a lot of work has been done. But rather than me beat on, I would like to ask Stuart Hewlett, who can give us chapter and verse, because the team have worked absolutely, they've excelled themselves on trying to find the solution to this, and we are finding the solution to this, and in fact there will be there's a report going to the senior leadership team. So could I ask, if it would be okay, Leader, to ask Stuart Hewlett, would he like to come and give us the nuts and bolts of everything, rather than me witter on forever? Thank you.
Yeah, okay, thanks. Just having a few connection problems, but yep, Stuart.
Okay, thank you everyone, good morning. As you know, thank you for the question, Councillor Gilling, because I know enforcement's been a really significant concern for members and parishes in terms of making sure that we're resourced up enough to be able to carry out that really important activity. I mean, as you know, it's a discretionary service, so traditionally it probably has had lesser priority than dealing with the planning applications, which is obviously income generating. And I think what this period of time has shown us is that actually the demands from the public on having an effective enforcement service is really, really high and getting higher. So in terms of the need to resource, I think we now fully accept there is a need to resource up that enforcement resource. I'm going to executive briefing on Monday on the 7th to set out some proposals in terms of how we're going to strengthen the enforcement team. As part of that as well, and Simon's touched upon the planning performance, which has been really good and really high. There is obviously the ongoing issue in the specific targets to do with planning registration. My proposals that I'm going to bring to you on Monday will also try to address that issue as well. Fundamentally, I'm suggesting a restructure of the team, going from 2 teams to 3 teams, which will include what I call a post-decision team, but a specific team about enforcement, compliance, monitoring, and those other sort of important areas. Because I know, when we've got large construction sites, etc., ongoing, there's a lot of public concern about how that's being monitored. So hopefully we can create some resource to help deal with some of those issues. In terms of planning registration, I'm looking to reintegrate that within the actual planning teams, give them proper line management, rather than as a standalone support team that they sit in at the moment. I think that's going to give some really good development and succession issues, and also integrate that planning registration target figure into the overall planning determination target, which we're very good at. We always hit our target in terms of determining them in line with where we want to get to, but it's that front end bit that takes the time and obviously is critical to us maintaining the planning performance going ahead. So I'll bring the proposals in detail on Monday, but it's certainly an area that I recognise that members have raised concerns in terms of planning registration and enforcement. So hopefully that answers Councillor Gilling's question.
Thank you. Exciting times.
Yes.
Councillor Caswell.
Thank you, Leader. Just a quick question. I received a phone call last night saying all sorts of things about Sedgemoor, but one of the things that really concerned me was the fact that a lot of our planning applications and decisions have been made, but seem to be held up because of the 106 agreement. And this includes the large planning application, which involves a school as well. So is there any comment on that? Because surely we can get the 106 agreements done as quickly as possible.
I don't know whether Mr. Hewlett can answer that at all, but if you can, if not, we'll find out something more specific. Yeah.
I certainly can. Thank you, Leader. And yeah, certainly, Councillor Caswell. I appreciate that is part of the long delays. Once we get a planning decision committee, is often the easy bit. It's often the legal negotiations that take place after the resolution. We are working with the legal team to try and work out a quicker and better way of dealing with the 106 issue. I would say it's a national issue. It's not a Sedgemoor issue. It just takes a long time because and with due respect to Mrs. Wellman, there's lots of solicitors involved, and it can become quite a prolonged process. We are looking at ways of how you can restructure 106 process to include things like incentivization, where you don't make any changes or any negotiations on a standard text to try and speed things up. But again, as part of that sort of overall planning proposal issue, having that post-implementation or post-decision team will mean there's a bit of focus on things once they get past the decision stage into the 106 stage, to give responsibility to a particular principle within the team to make sure that we're making sure things are going through the system and not just left to the side and not being chased up and driven forward. So it's all part of the proposals that I'll bring on Monday.
Okay, brilliant. Councillor Keane.
Thank you, Leader. It's a question for Simon, please. When you mentioned the claim, people who assist with the claims, because there have been so many changes of circumstances, and now that furlough is ending, there's going to be an even greater number. And citizens' advice statistics show that it's the initial claims that are causing a lot of the difficulties, And that is fundamental to actually solving some of the other issues of personal debt, of which council tax arrears, fuel debt is reaching very high amounts. But I agree with you that the staff who assist with getting someone's paperwork and all the little ducks in a row signed, that they have done absolute miracles, and I would compliment them greatly.
Yeah, unfortunately, we can't be held responsible for any failings or delays there may be with the universal credit system, but certainly our officers, as usual, are doing a terrific job. Any other members of council wish to comment on the report? No, I'll say, great, Simon. You know, it was unexpected that the report is such a positive report at this time. We had mentioned at the last executive when we were discussing performance indicators that our concentration must be on COVID-19 situation and the measures that everybody was taking outside of their normal comfort zones to process many things to help our communities. And we did say that we expected the performances to drop off. And I still say that because we don't know what's around the corner at the moment. But in the meantime, the report that's come forward at the moment is a glowing report. We mustn't be complacent, and we must maintain that if we possibly can, but must expect that we may drop off at some point due to the impact of COVID or levelling up or something, which we cannot foresee at the moment. So right, back to you, Mr. Duddridge, Councillor Duddridge.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, next item. Again, a very positive report on the dashboard. A couple of highlights I'd pick out would include the processing of, we were just talking about planning, processing of major applications being first in the country for the 19th consecutive quarter. And also something that sometimes goes unremarked is the work of the grants committee, because they managed to allocate their budget of, I think, £50,000 to various community groups and sports groups that will be starting up again as COVID relaxes, and that'd be a great help to our various communities. Again, over to Mr. Tandy, but very happy to take questions after. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Duddridge. Yes, so the performance monitoring for the quarter, just a few things to highlight. The procurement plan that we first published last quarter, we've added some additional information, some text there, just to make things a bit clearer. I would welcome any comments on the information that's provided in the procurement plan, so that I can go back to the procurement officer if necessary to request any further information. So please have a think about that. Don't necessarily have to tell me today. If you can let me know outside of the meeting, then that would be great. Thank you. With regards to the human resource statement, it just shows a healthy level of staffing. The number of employees has remained a steady just around about the 400 mark throughout the year, and overall and voluntary turnover were slightly lower than the previous year. As Councillor Duddridge mentioned, grants. Final quarter of 2020-21 saw over £30,000 worth of grants awarded to various local associations and clubs. There were a total of 16 during the quarter, which brought the total for the year up to 26, and just about on the budget. So that's again testament to the grants team for that. I will go back to planning again. Councillor Duddridge did mention planning again for this report, and we do highlight planning in this report quite often, and that is because the statistics are so good for us. We do rank. It is a joint first for the 100% of major applications on time. So a number of other authorities also reach that as well. But then if you go anything below 100%, so even 99.9%, you would be ranking much lower than first, if that makes any sense. So again, real tribute to the planning officers for that work. Just for future reference, in the next quarterly report, we intend to bring information on Northgate Yard. So there'll be effectively quarterly updates on progress on the Northgate Yard project. So having had discussions with Stuart Martin, he'll be providing me with the information to include in the report. And another thing that we're looking at adding is information from Somerset Waste Partnership, so quarterly data to be added into quarterly reports. And before we move on to Homes and Sedgemoor's part, passing over to Peter Hatch, please, any questions or queries?
Members, any comments or questions you have? Okay. Not at the moment. Okay, Simon, thanks for the note about getting back to you on the procurement plan. I'm sure we'll all have another scan through that and come back to you with any feedback that we may have. Now, shall I hand over to Peter?
Yes, thank you, Leader. Quick summary today, and I think very much an end of year performance in a similar path to what we've been reporting earlier in the year. I think probably our biggest challenge was voids in the last year. The first lockdown really did hit us. We had a backlog of properties to let after. You'll see our performance on there to March, but very pleased to say that in April we're back under 30 days now, which is really good. So we've broken the back of those properties that we had to let. I think highlight for us has been the rents. Coming in at year end at under 1% is a fantastic result for all of the team and the organisation, particularly in the challenging circumstances. And ASB has also gone up as well, but you'll see in the report it's starting to tail off now as the lockdown is ending and sort of freedoms are coming back. So in the last year, we put a lot of work into compliance and continuing to improve safety. That has involved a lot of challenges getting into homes, which I think we've managed pretty well too. And the last paper in the pack that you've got is just a summary from Housemark, which is a national benchmarking service. And it shows you some of these key measures across the whole country. And we've overlaid our performance in there in terms of rent arrears, repairs, etc. So hopefully that gives you a little indication of how we're faring compared to the national picture. So not quite as rosy a picture on KPIs as Simon has had on there, and certainly more reds than I would like. But hopefully we've explained some of the background to those and look forward to pulling those into the amber and green in the coming year. But overall, I think a pretty solid end to the year, if not a perfect end. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Members, any comments or questions? Mr. Bamsey, anything from you?
I think Peter summarised it very well. There is work to be done, but as Peter says, very challenging times, and coming out the other side of that as we are, I think, particularly on rent collection, because that indicates, of course, that people are being helped very much, which is the important thing, being proactive, and as you say, a great tribute to both Homes in Sedgemoor and the overall Sedgemoor team.
Thank you. Thank you. And just before I come to the Deputy Leader, we're hearing an awful lot in the press at the moment about the moratorium on evictions coming to an end fairly soon. Does that give us any concerns at all?
Very few. I think Homes in Sedgemoor's had a number of years now a policy of aiming for 0 evictions for rent arrears every year, and it's been very successful at that, certainly in the last 3 to 4 years. So our eviction rate is one of the lowest in the country, I think one in the last 18 months. And as Doug has mentioned, the proactive work that we do and working with SDC's team as well, I would not expect to see a huge impact. And every eviction is a loss for us, and we failed at that process. So the key thing is to avoid evictions, and with the arrears level we've got, I'm very much confident that that's not going to happen.
Thank you for that reassurance. Councillor Slocum.
Thank you, Leader. Apologies, I should have put that in the message box. I'm sorry. I'm going on to the appendices. I just wanted to say that I'm looking at the non-emergency repairs, and I'm glad to see that they are getting back. I found it quite astonishing how you were able to do repairs in lockdown anyway. So you know, it's amazing really. But I think repairs are so important for people when these, you know, it might be minor things, but they make a change to their life. So you're nearly up to the figure that you were at your peak, and I'm sure it's going to increase further. But I'd like to say that I'm very, very pleased about that, and to thank you and your team, because getting into people's homes must be a bit of a challenge, and to say the least. So thank you.
Indeed. Thank you, Councillor Slocum. Just a little point on the Housemarque figure there. You'll see our repairs are higher than the national average. That is because in the first lockdown, we had a very short period of just emergencies only, and then we've maintained near enough a full service all the way through the last year, provided customers would let us in their home. So we didn't close everything down for a prolonged period. Because of that, we're in a better position coming out. We haven't got a backlog of jobs like many have.
Yeah. Well done. Well done.
Yeah,
thank you.
Good. Thank you. Councillor Healy.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Peter, just a few things, if I may. What's your policy on your customers being aggravated by the neighbours, making complaint after complaint through to officers of Sedgemoor, homes in Sedgemoor rather, and not being able to bring it to a conclusion? I was slightly disappointed. Unfortunately, it is a personal thing. I have somebody in the location where I live that's had horrendous problems and has been contacting homes in Sedgemoor, the police, etc., for a long time now. So I was looking at your KPIs. You know, clearly there's an ongoing problem which clearly needs resolving. Could you let me know, reassure me if you like, and other members of the council, what Homes in Sedgemoor policy is about getting over these problems, which seem to be insurmountable, if I'm making any sense? Thank you.
Yeah, certainly. I think the challenge we have, and we're committed to trying to resolve every case that we have for antisocial behaviour. The last year has put a huge pressure because everybody is in their home together. The key thing we've had really, the challenge is noise nuisance coming through. Unfortunately, there are two sides to every story, and then we have to investigate, and therein lies the protracted nature. And we can always we can resolve a case really to the satisfaction of one party. Seldom do we get to the satisfaction of both parties. So that's the challenge that we face. Every case is investigated, but again, unfortunately, we can't resolve everything to everyone's satisfaction. But if there is a particular one, Councillor Healy, if you want to let me know, I will look into that and find out what has happened.
Through you, Leader, thank you for that, Peter. If that's okay, I will be doing that so we can bring this to a satisfactory conclusion for us all. Thank you for that.
Okay.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Doddridge.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Just very briefly to say on Councillor Healy's comments, I know what he means. It can be frustrating, but I've got a fair amount of homes in Sedgemoor stock in my ward, and I find there's two problems. Sometimes it's basically two neighbours having a row. It's not actually antisocial behaviour. The other problem is people will not keep a record of whatever behaviour is going on. So we've got nothing. I say homes in Sedgemoor have got nothing to work on. It's very awkward sometimes, even if there's a problem there. If people won't keep a full record in the diaries and everything, it's very difficult for homes in Sedgemoor officers to implement anything. But that's not to take away from your problem that you've got in your ward. But that's how I've found things anyway.
Good, thank you. Councillor Slocum.
Thank you, Leader. I'm just going to say the same thing. I wondered, I remember in my ward many years ago, it took us 7 years to get rid of a perpetrator, and it was devastating for many of the people in the ward. But I wonder if something in the policy could be in the policy to actually say to residents that if they do have, you know, if they do have issues, that they must keep records, they must keep daily records, they must do, And I think if residents did this straight away, I don't mean that they automatically go that way, but I think if they have some understanding of the problems that you as housing officers have, the fact that it's so important to keep a record, I wonder if it's something that could be put in the policy straight from the word go. Thank you.
I think that's something I will pass back to the team. We've just looked at the tenancy agreement, in fact, and been out for consultation with your officers. So I will ask that we consider that for the next time we review it. See if we can put something in. I haven't heard of it before, but definitely worth looking at.
No, I'm always thinking of things we haven't heard before. Trust me. Thank you.
Right, members. Any other comments or questions from anyone? I think I've got general gist of the discussion. So thank you all very much for both those reports, Simon, Peter and Lance. Very helpful. Thank you. Moving on then to agenda item 7. It's the Climate Change Joint Delivery Plan proposal. And I'll hand over to Councillor Keane.
Thank you, Leader. I understand we have got the Assistant Director for Climate Change from Somerset West and Taunton and the Project Manager, and I would warmly welcome both of you to this meeting. I've written some notes. As you're all aware, this council, together with our colleague councils, in all of them in the county, have signed our pledge to the climate change strategy. And the proposal today is to really to put into place the practical steps with our partners, particularly Somerset West and Taunton, to actually achieve the goal. Because these things don't just happen. It takes steady work from the officer group, and I would strongly recommend that this be taken. We have Kirsty Blackwell, who has been our own lead officer in implementing and making the back arrangements, and I would ask Christy if she would take you through the report. Thank you.
Thank you. And introduce our guests as well, if you wouldn't mind, Christy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Councillor Keane. Morning, everybody. So please let me introduce you to Chris Hall, Assistant Director at Somerset West and Taunton, and Sue Tomlinson, who's the Programme Manager for Climate Change, again, Somerset West and Taunton. And we also have on the call, I think, Anna Mears, who is our own graduate support around climate change and has made an awful lot of this work in Sedgemoor happen over the last 12 to 18 months. So by way of introduction, obviously the report that's in front of you is fairly detailed, so I won't go through it with a fine-tooth comb, but what I will do is pick out some of the key points and invite you to ask any questions of myself and the team that I've mentioned, and we can hopefully answer any of those that you may have. So, as Councillor Keane mentioned, both councils, Sedgemoor District Council and Somerset West and Taunton, have declared or announced their recognition of the climate emergency. And we've both authorities have approved the Somerset-wide climate emergency strategy and action plan. We both also have our own action plans, which sets out a whole range of actions to set us towards our goal of reaching carbon neutrality by 2030. Somerset West and Taunton have also declared an ecological crisis, and that's work that's also going through our community scrutiny panel at the moment, with the hope that that may be coming forward to full council in the future for consideration. In our budget set this year, the council approved a growth budget of £250,000 to climate change, and we made a commitment at that time to come back with a proposal as to how we were going to resource ourselves to be able to achieve some of the actions within that action plan, and that's very much what we're presenting to you today. So we've been in discussion with Somerset West and Taunton around joining our team to create a joint delivery partnership. And in appendix, I think it's appendix 2 you've got there, we've put in there the detail of our proposal. So from Sedgemoor District Council's point of view, we're proposing to put in 2 posts into a structure that's already existing in Somerset West and Taunton, led by Chris and managed by Sue. And we also will be putting in a commitment to part fund an ecological strategist, and also to part fund a county-wide project manager who will have a role to oversee our work within that county-wide framework and the action plan that sits across everything. In Appendix 1, we've got some detail there around how we are proposing for the member involvement in that, and perhaps I'd like to invite Chris to detail how we see that working.
Thank you, and thank you for the warm welcome. So officers have been working through kind of the logistics around how each authority maintains its sovereign status, whilst also bringing the 2 functions together to ensure that we maximise the benefits. So we wanted to enhance the level of member engagement that you get within some of the other partnerships that exist. So I've been involved with the Somerset Waste Partnership and with the creation of the Building Control Partnership. And in both of those arrangements, you have 2 members that sit on the board. So we wanted to enhance that, and we've proposed within this structure that there would be 2 members to be nominated by the council from each authority, as well as the relevant portfolio holder. So within Somerset West and Taunton, we have a specific climate change portfolio holder who we're proposing within that slide pack, and for yourselves this climate change portfolio fits within a wider portfolio and would be Councillor Keane. So as the name suggests, it's a consultation panel, so all of the decisions that you have and the normal delegations would still apply. So we want the consultation process to be engaging, drive the direction of the joint delivery partnership without undoing any of the authority that you already have. So all of your portfolio delegations, your executive and your council decisions would still be retained by each authority, but we have a consultation panel that brings them both together so we can have conversations about the direction of delivery, but hopefully you'll be satisfied that we're not taking away any of the existing power or control. Happy to take any questions on that if there are any.
Right, members, any comments or questions? I mean, from my point of view, it seems a sensible approach to jointly work through this and to gain greater rewards as a result of it, and to work together in such a way seems eminently sensible. Councillor Slocum.
Oh, sorry, Leader, you actually stole my thunder there. I was just going to say the same thing, not as eloquently as you, of course, but I think this is a really sensible approach. It's such a serious now delivery that we have to do, and I think it's one that we all are talking about far more now than we've ever done before. And I think this is a very, very good way of working. And I thank you, Christy, for the work, and thank you, Chris, and all your team, because brilliant, absolutely brilliant. So well done to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Keane.
Thank you. I have had the very great pleasure of informally meeting with my opposite number, the portfolio holder for Somerset West and Taunton, and with Sue Tomlinson last week. And it is very clear that we are, all of us, thinking very much along the same lines. So again, I would certainly move the recommendation as it's been published.
Right, thank you. And it is a recommendation for the leader to consider the decision at the conclusion of this meeting. Any other comments or questions from any member of council present today? Can I just, in that case, ask the executive if there are any abstentions or opposition to the recommendation to give me a feel? Nope. I think, Andrew, that's a fairly clear indication for me to.
Yes.
Yep.
Yep. That is a clear indication for you, Leader, for your recommendations at the end of the meeting. Yes.
Thank you. Right. In that case, it falls upon me to thank you, Christy,
Thank you,
Chris, and Sue for your attendance today, and thank you very much for the brilliant work that we're all going to do together in the future. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And then before we move on to the next item, I'm just going to pop across to Melanie Wellman, who I believe wishes to reassure Councillor Keane or ourselves that there is no prejudicial interest. Mrs. Wellman.
Yes, thank you, Leader. I've given Councillor Keane some advice, and Councillor Keane does not have any other interest that she needs to declare this morning. The only interest is the personal interest in homes in Sedgemoor. Nothing else for Councillor Keane to declare. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, with that bit cleared up, we'll move on to agenda item 8, which is the Monitoring Services Business Plan and the Jerry Milton Show. Is Jerry here?
He is.
I am.
All right. Lance, do you want to kick off first?
Yeah, before Jerry takes the floor, I'll just say I'm very happy to put this bid forward. It's part of a very ambitious plan to both improve the quality of service that monitoring services provides and to make the service self-supporting from late 2022. If the growth bid is approved, it allows us to continue to provide an invaluable service both to customers and key partners, and also put the services on a financially independent footing. And with that, I will hand over to Mr. Milton.
Thank you, Councillor Dudridge. I've also got Mr. Denslow and Mr. Parsons here, who lead the respective teams day to day, in case of any questions. The report sets out some of the problems or the issues, challenges facing the service over the last couple of years and going forward. Since December, monitoring services has come under the umbrella of customer services, and we've been able to look at new ways of managing the service, which have been so far pretty successful. But as I say, there have been some key challenges with this valued service, and I've set that out in the report and in the business plan. I mean, some of the key things have been there's been difficulties with supporting staff and managers in that service. The Lifeline service itself is extremely valued by our customers and partners, but it is somewhat traditional in the way we do things. And the CCTV service, again, extremely valued by the public and our partners and police, but some of our relationships with those other organisations could be strengthened, and the technology has failed us at times, so it's not as robust as it should have been. So there's been some quite positive activity around that recently. For example, we've got a new video monitoring service currently being installed now, which will make the CCTV service a lot more robust from a technical perspective going forward. And we expect that implementation to be complete in about a month's time. So that's good. And we're reviewing all of our cameras and those of our partners at the moment to upgrade the ones that need that. And as I say, we have had a better management structure in place since December, involving a much more supportive environment, which I'll come back to in a minute. And it's that really that we need to seize upon and make more robust going forward, hence the growth bid. So when it comes to the business plan itself, if I could just refer to the final page there, which shows the staff structure. And this is where there have been difficulties in the past of staff feeling fully supportive and managers as well. Well, under customer services, what we're proposing is that there should be 4 team leaders, all with their specialisms, but all being supported, mutually supported. And that is the way we're working at the moment, where there are currently 3 team leaders, but they've all understand what the different services that they're providing. So Sedgemoor Digital, CCTV and Lifeline, they could all, each of those individual managers could step into each other's services and support if somebody's off sick or on leave, or they just need additional support. So staff have really valued that. They've got far more interaction with their managers. and they do feel supported and, more importantly, part of the organisation. I think one of our biggest challenges has been monitoring services feel like they're almost like the forgotten service, partly because of the type of work they do, where they're located. And we're starting to challenge that really and sort of promote the service a little bit more internally. So you can see there what we're asking for is an additional team leader that can work in Sedgemoor Digital to give us additional support across the whole of customer services. Because in Sedgemoor Digital, there's been a significant increase in customer queries as well. So that's what we're asking for. In terms of growth, we're quite excited about the potential in monitoring services for growth. We feel that Lifeline is really just seen as an elderly person's service for people who just want to be able to press a button and call a monitoring officer. But it's an actual fact, the potential is much, much bigger than that with the technology nowadays. We should be offering a service to a much wider audience, really, including younger people, and a more personalized service depending on people's needs. We think that we can gain significant growth in our customer base, not just in Sedgemoor, but in other districts as well. And we've spoken to many of our partners, occupational therapists, Somerset County Council, and they're all saying the same thing. It is a very valued service, but we've restricted ourselves a little bit. So the business plan sets that out. And the same with CCTV. We feel that if our focus at the moment is getting the service in a more robust state with the technology, getting our cameras working, in other words, properly. Once we do that, we feel that we can certainly draw on other areas for growth throughout the district, probably in the private sector as much as anything. And the business plan sets that out. So we're very excited about the potential. I just think it's, the last 3 months have been quite challenging on getting the structure right internally and getting our own house in order and making the staff who run the service day to day feel supported and respected. And, not just by us who are leading them, but by the whole organisation. And I can't underestimate how important that has been. Going in and talking to staff on one-to-ones. So that forms the basis of our business plan. And then the detailed things are in there, which I'm quite happy to go through in some detail, particularly with the help of Mr. Denslow, who's helped me with this business plan. So without further ado, that's it. So if there's any questions, I'm quite happy to take them.
Members, any comments or questions? I've got to say, it's quite refreshing that the service process and delivery has been taken up by someone, and we're actually gearing the service up to move forward in the 21st century. Councillor Keane.
Thank you. Jerry, when you mentioned the review on the CCTV side, will you be including the locations of where the cameras are and also the numbers of cameras? Because I know from years ago when this scheme first started, there have been so many changes, not only of buildings, movements of where concentrations of people or businesses are, but also mature trees, which may in some places obscure lines of sight of what was intended to be an area of surveillance. That would be a great reassurance. And on the business side, is there any plans to have the service robust enough to allow, at a charge as an income generation, a private business or person to lock their own personal CCTV system into yours? Because we know that the quality of the images that our system has is good enough for police and magistrates to accept those as reliable evidence if there should be an incident. And any reassurance you could give to people that I do from time to time do get concerned people it would be very helpful. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Keane. In terms of location, we've had a lot of discussion about this sort of thing, and we're trying to unpick quite a few things because people keep telling us that there used to be some coverage in certain areas of Sedgemoor, now there isn't, or there were discussions years ago about. So we're trying to work our way through that. As I said, our biggest focus at the moment must be on the technology and making it robust enough, because we can promise the world to everybody. There's loads of things we could do, but we're simply not delivering what we were supposed to be delivering now. And that is been our biggest concern over the last 3 or 4 months, is getting our technology right so that we can provide a decent service. In answer to your question, we need to talk to the community more. So it's not for me to say where we should be placing these cameras. We've not done enough consultation, I don't think, with members of the public, through elected members, parish councils, or private businesses. But I can't go into those discussions now when our technology is failing us, and it is literally falling over as we speak. So, the good news is that we're resolving that now, but we will certainly be opening up dialogue about where we think cameras should be and perhaps where they shouldn't be. Bearing in mind, this is a community facility and it is quite intrusive, as some people would say. For some people feel that. So we have to be cautious, and we have to have buy-in of the community and businesses and our partners. In terms of expanding out to private areas, yes, I think that has got to be an area of growth for us, working with private organisations and people that we're used to working with, like the YMCA. YMCA have quite an extensive monitoring system, and their buildings are growing all the time, and they've started to talk to us about integrating with their system and monitoring for them. So there's an opportunity for us, and expanding down to Minehead, for example, and other parts of Somerset West. So we've tentatively entered into those discussions, but as I say, I've got to make sure our own house is in order first, that the staff are supported, and the technology is doing what it's supposed to do.
Yeah, thank you. Good answer there, I think. Jill.
Thank you, Leader. I'd just like to say I think the business plan is very impressive. Jerry, I'd like to thank you and your team. I think you've laid it out very, very well. I think to consider 3 new posts at 72,000 is pretty impressive as well. I think that's good, and I'm very pleased. I think that none of us can never doubt the need for Lifeline, which is such an exceptionally good service and needed by so many. CCTV is only as good as your quality, and if your quality is poor and they can't see what they're supposed to see, then it's waste of time having it. So I would absolutely agree with you that we have to get the technology right. Otherwise, it's absolutely a waste of time. The customer services, obviously, I still believe in people. So absolutely, second to none. I think you talk about consultation. I think greater consultation should be with the police. I think they and our obviously other services throughout Sedgemoor. They know where the best places is for the cameras. They know where the hubs of issues are. Bridgewater Town Centre over the weekend was pretty awful. Some people decided to abandon their clothes, and what upset quite a few people. And these things need to be picked up quickly, efficiently, and they will be done with you get the technology in place. So this is a collaboration of all people working together to get the best service out, and I hope we continue to do that. And so this is a really, really good step forward. And I think the extra staffing that you need, we all need extra staffing. I think every department does need it, really. But I can see exactly why you would. So yeah, absolutely happy with this. Happy to support that recommendation, Leader. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bamsey.
Thank you, Leader. I was going to say that this is discretionary service, as we well know, and one that's very valued at the same time. So I think it's absolutely appropriate. And I've written down that we're appropriately ambitious because and well based. And I think with Jerry and with Gareth and with Harry and their colleagues, I think we have a very good basis to go forward. And I think so often the conversation's been round the wrong way. We've been talking about plans to do things without actually the if you like, the foundations in place. I think this is very well placed. Significantly, of course, monitoring services in going forward is going to be a real strength for Stronger Somerset because of what it offers, not least of which the ability to divert from needing different sorts of responses to a first response effectively through Lifeline, and of course, for that matter, CCTV. So I think it's a really, really important moment, and I think rightly Jerry and his colleagues are giving proper thought to what's actually required to move forward positively, consistently. And I'm sure we will, regularly will be updated as to the progress being made. And I'm sure there will be very good progress. So it's a very positive report, which SLT were very supportive of. Thank you.
Yeah, and it's exactly the right way to go. Root and branch review of what we've got before coming forward with recommendations to improve. Thank you. Councillor Duddridge.
Yeah, thanks, Leader. Just very briefly on Councillor Keane's point about the positioning of cameras and where they're needed, there's a couple of other things we'll be able to take into account. As Mr. Milton said, we've got to get the basics right first, but once that's done, I think our survey, the Sedgemoor survey on how safe people feel in their communities, that went out, and that involved questions about CCTV and various things, and we can get some data out of that. And also, I believe we're putting in for some funding from the government Safer Streets initiative. That's also a thing that covers a multitude of different aspects, but certainly CCTVs on that, and hopefully that funding to be successful. So, like I said, we get the basics right first, get the new system in, get it up and running, and once that system's in, we can also take data off of there about how often individual cameras are used in incidents. So hopefully we can pull all that together and possibly review the position of the cameras when the time comes. And while I'm here, I would thank, much as it pains me to say anything complimentary to Mr. Milton, I must thank him for the way he's took CCTV by the scruff of the neck, and also Mr. Denslow and even young Mr. Parsons, because in 6 months we have started sorting out, there were some legacy issues there, but certainly we're in the right direction now anyway. So thanks to them.
Right, thank you. Councillor Gilling.
Thank you, Duncan. A question to Jerry, obviously. Would it be possible, and I'm loath to overload Mr. Milton and his team, but would it be possible somehow to include developers within site developments so that provision could be made available for CCTV in those particular sites? And this will include homes in Sedgemoor to some degree, but at the same time, not all estates are built with the homes in Sedgemoor's control. Would it be possible to have some sort of new development type provision made available through developers? Thank you, Leader.
Okay,
Thank
well,
you.
I think, sorry, yes, I think that's something that we'd need to, again, going back to consultation, and you've rightly raised an issue there, and it's something we'd have to consider. So I think there's so many areas that we should be looking at in terms of CCTV, our coverage, the way we cover it. Why do we? What do we do with the information instead of just observing people? Are we supporting the people that can actually act on things that we find, such as the police? So I think it's, CCTV is quite a complex issue, really, because I think, you've got a team of guys, my team sat in a room observing activity in the community. You've got to really think about what you're doing once you've seen something happening. Why are you watching people? And then are you being smart enough in how you report it? Once you've reported it, is anything being done? And are we collecting data around that, about the success rate of what we have done with it? And it's quite complex. So we can carry on monitoring. We can all be monitored, everything that we do. We just got to be cautious about what we use data and information for. And is it making our community safer, making people feel safe? Are we just putting more of a burden on our police, for example, if we're continually reporting things? So there has to be a collective response when we decide to put more monitoring in place. we have to be careful about what we're opening up, and if we're all supportive of it, then great, that's what we do. That's a long answer.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it was good. I mean, you know, there are many issues to be considered when placing CCTV cameras and monitoring, not for the sake of monitoring, but as you say, with a purpose in mind, it is the most important thing. Councillor Keane.
Thank you. With the monitoring, what strikes me as being very important is having an immediate liaison with the main emergency services control rooms, because when people make a call to 999 or 101, that is not visual. Whereas if it's for a public matter, say for an ambulance or a police car to go to a public place, you'll have the ability to actually see what's there. And it's not uncommon. In fact, we've had reports over the last year of emergency service workers, paramedics and police officers being injured out on calls by troublemakers. Not accidents, but deliberate harm has been caused to them. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's all something for the future. As Jerry said, let's get the basics right first, and then we can move forward with a potential expansion of the service. It's quite exciting, the prospects that would be there, but let's get the basics right first. Councillor Slocum.
Thank you, Leader. I just wanted to say to Jerry that I know for a fact, and as you do, how much the police value Sedgemoor's work with the CCTV, and you play such a valuable part in us helping and trying to make our streets safer in some hot spots in our area. So I think that there's no doubt about it. There's a very valued service. So just wanted to add that bit. That's all. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you. And I'm sure many members will remember that we've had discussions with the police over many years in order to try and get them to contribute something to it, to show the value that they believe is there. But we've always failed somewhat. In fact, we've failed quite considerably, really. But the police feel it's our job and not theirs to monitor, which is an unfortunate situation to be in. Any other members wanting to make comment or question? I will say that if you look at the report on the 151 officer comments, it's saying that the money could be taken from the Community Development Fund as it's one-off funding at this stage, and I'd like members to consider that as a way forward when making their objection or support or abstention, which I will now come to with Councillor Duddridge's approval. Are there any members who wish to abstain or object to the report recommendations? No, in that case then, Mr. Melhuish, that's confirmation of support for the report from the executive.
Yes,
and if you're happy, I'm happy to.
If you're happy, then that will be a recommendation for full council to consider the supplementary estimate, sorry, the growth bid of 72,000 at their meeting in July.
Thank you, and I'm happy to support that recommendation. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, members.
Thank you.
Thank you to Jerry and his team, Mr. Parsons, and who else did we have here? We had somebody else, didn't we?
Mr. Denslow.
Yeah. Thank you for your attendance. And we move on then to report number 9, which is SDC/HIS Management Agreement, and we are joined by Mr. Baxter, who is going to introduce this.
Right, thank you, Leader. You'll note the finance comments to the report. This is a more robust, workable, flexible agreement than the previous one. when it comes to setting the annual management fee. We did get caught out last time with the 4-year rent cut, so a freeze in the fee as obviously our income was reduced, and we had to work sort of very hard to come to a resolution in that case. This management agreement also remains flexible in terms of encompassing new legislation. So we've got the social housing white paper, the fire safety bill, building safety bill, all of which could have an impact on the management fee. And I think it's as well to point out, important to the social housing white paper is tenant engagement and consultation. And that consultation with tenants and leaseholders is prevalent throughout the agreement on issues affecting the HRA, rent set, budget proposals, etc. So I just recommend the revised management agreement to members. I mean, any questions or comments, myself and Peter Hatch are both here and happy to receive them.
Thank you. Peter, is there anything you wish to say?
No, lead. Well, just I think David has covered it on there. I think it's tidied up. It's reflecting the new social housing white paper, and we've been able to move quite quickly on those new KPIs as well. I think it also clarifies responsibilities for property compliance and safety and puts those really firmly in both parties, but particularly on homes in Sedgemoor. So you will see attached a very comprehensive monthly compliance report that we've been producing for Dave and Teresa now every month for the last year. So that is now enshrined within this document so that we're fully accountable for all of those areas. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. And my omission, Councillor Gilling, sorry.
Thank you, Leader. I have nothing more further to add. I think both experts have encompassed the report extremely well, and I'm hoping it's going to get the full support from Executive. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And it will be a recommendation if approved through to Council. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Members, any comments or questions on the agreement? Councillor Slocum.
Thank you, Leader. I just would like to commend and thank the Sedgemoor Housing Management Agreement that actually has definitions in it as well. How amazing is that? You never get that now in any reports, but that is, I thank you for that, because what you do forget sometimes what little titles and definitions and acronyms are. So thank you very, very much. And I thought it was very well laid out, very explanatory. And yes, I'm more than happy. Thank you.
Right, thank you. And any other comments or questions from anyone? No? Oh. Well, then the recommendation, as you see, is to move this forward to full council meeting. Are any members of the executive wishing to object or abstain? Or are you happy for me to approve moving this report forward? Please speak now. Nope, Mr. Melhuish.
Yes, thank you very much. And that one as well looks as though it's a recommendation for you to approve to take this report through to Council in July for further approval from all members.
And I'm happy to approve that for full council to agree.
Thank you.
Right, thank you.
Thank you.
I don't believe there's any further business. It's a new area, a new way of working. It seems slightly odd, but I'm sure we'll get there in the end. But I think it's been a good meeting, and I thank members for their input throughout the meeting. Without any further business, then I declare the meeting closed, and thank you. Have a good day.